Hello, hello. Okay. Today we are going to continue with The Awakening of Sunshine Girl, and we are on chapter 6. Last time we learned a lot about the background. So Sunshine is a Lusic or something, however you pronounce it. And her dad has shown up all of a sudden. Luisic, I think that's how it was. And now she has to go on some kind of training arc, but she has to go without her quote-unquote protector, who also happens to be the boy that she likes, but then she also feels sick around him. Hi Jen. And that's where we're at. So now it's chapter 6. She's about to head out. Yeah. Okay. We got a strong start to the chapter. I want to kiss Nolan. Of course I want to kiss him. But I'm not sure I want our first kiss, my first kiss ever, by the way, to be a kiss goodbye. Does Nolan think I'm going to be gone a very, very long time and this is his last chance to show how he feels about me? I mean, I want him to show me how he feels, if this really is how he feels, but not right now. Not like this. And not just because it's a kiss goodbye. Ever since I met Nolan, his touch has had a strange sort of effect on me. I don't mean in a romantic, makes my knees weak sort of way, though I really wish I did. Being near him may make me warm, but only up to a point. If he gets too close, I don't feel good. I mean, I feel literally sick when he touches me. Like I'm going to throw up, or like I have a fever and need to lie down and get under the covers for a very long time. Which isn't exactly conducive to romance. Sure, there have been times when I've ignored this feeling, when he was bleeding, or when he grabbed my hand to run through the torrential rain, but those were emergency situations. They were nothing like this. Still, here I am, around the corner from our front porch, my back leaning against the outside of our house. The kitchen is on the other side of this wall. The same wall that actually disappeared a few days ago as I battled the demon that threatened to kill my mother and Nolan and to destroy Anna's spirit altogether. But right now, this wall feels completely solid, not even an earthquake could make it falter. And that's a good thing, because right now I'm shaking so much I need something solid to lean on. I can feel Nolan's breath on my face. As he leans down, his tawny hair falls across his amber eyes. I inhale. The camera bumps against my chest between us. But when his thumb traces my jaw, every muscle in my body stiffens as I try to control my gag reflex. Nolan drops his hand and steps back. Why don't you want me to touch you? I shake my head. There's no way to tell him that being this close to him makes me feel sick without sending the wrong message. As if reading my thoughts, he prompts, "You can tell me the truth." I nod. When I told Mom everything, she said that she'd love me the same no matter what, and I felt about a zillion times better than I had before. Plus, from the look on Nolan's face, it's clear that the truth he's expecting is for me to tell him that I don't like him that way, that I just want to be friends. I'd rather he know the truth than believe I don't want him. So I tell him. But Nolan doesn't look relieved. He backs away, one foot behind the other, like he can't get away from me fast enough. I'm sorry, I begin, but Nolan shakes his head. I understand. He cuts me off. Maybe it's a Louis Siege thing, I suggest desperately. Maybe Aiden can help me learn how to overcome it. I add, but it's the wrong thing to say. No guy wants to hear that the girl he wants to kiss has to overcome disgusting feelings in order to kiss him back. I look down at my bright blue sneakers. I've hurt him. I've really hurt him. This doesn't feel better than keeping the truth to myself. This feels much, much worse. I better go, he says finally. Before I can call out wait, or I'm sorry, or goodbye, before I can say anything at all, Nolan stuffs his hat in his back pocket and heads around the corner, down our driveway, and into his grandfather's car parked across the street. I wait for him to drive away, and then I go back to the front porch, where Mom is standing with her arms folded across her chest, holding herself to keep warm. He forgot his jacket, I say softly as Mom puts her arms around me. Promise me you'll get it to him when I'm gone, okay? I promise, Mom replies. I tuck Victoria's letters into one of the pockets so Nolan can take care of it while I'm gone. Mom strokes my hair, frizzed from the Ridgemont moisture. Maybe wherever Aiden is taking me will be dry enough that my hair will actually behave. Not that I know where he's taking me. He just said that it was warm and that I needed to bring my passport. I lean down and kiss Oscar on top of his soft little head, sending his tail wagging speed into overdrive. Upstairs, I kissed my taxidermied owl, Doctor Who, in the exactly same spot. A taxidermied owl is an interesting thing to have. Aiden steps onto the front porch. Take care of my baby. Mom's voice shakes as she faces him. She turns back to me, twisting my curls around her fingers. We've never been apart for so much as summer camp. And call every day. Her voice breaks on the last word, and then she swallows. I know she's trying so hard to be strong for me, not to let on that she's scared, both to let me go of what might happen. Both to let me go and of what might happen to me if I stay behind. I know because I'm scared of the exact same things. I have no idea how to say goodbye to her. She pulls me into her arms again and whispers, "You can come home anytime you want to. Just say the word and I'll come rescue you." I nod into her hair. I know that if I open my mouth to speak, I'll start to cry. I lean down and lift my backpack off the ground, acutely aware of the weight of what's inside of it. Not just my books and some clothes I couldn't fit into my duffel bag, nestled between the Mustang t-shirt I stole from Mom and my tattered copy of Pride and Prejudice is something else. I decided to pack it at the very last minute. The rusty old knife that transformed into a torch on New Year's Eve when I faced the water demon. I want to be prepared no matter what. Aiden said we were going someplace safe. Victoria said this weapon would manifest as whatever I needed it to be at the moment I needed it. I don't know what I'm going to need next. I settle into the passenger seat of Aiden's long black sedan. He drives out of our driveway and Mom gets smaller and smaller until Aiden turns the car and I can't see her anymore. Once we get to wherever we're going, I'm going to move the knife from my bag to my back pocket. I'd rather have it within arm's reach, just in case. And we're on chapter 7, the flight. Oy. Yay. Okay. Aiden's car has tinted windows and soft leather seats, and the controls on the dashboard look more like the ones on the Starship Enterprise than like the ones on Mom's old sedan. As we drive to the Seattle airport, Aiden tells me we're flying to Mazatlan in central Mexico. There's no direct flight from SeaTac to the Mazatlan airport, so we're changing planes in LA, and the whole thing will take more than 10 hours. I've never been out of the country, I say. I know, Aiden answers, pressing down on the gas pedal because we have a flight to catch. I wonder what else he knows about my life. Does he know Mom and I have pizza and movie night once a week? That I've never kissed a boy? That I prefer vintage clothes to new ones? Why would I have taxidermy? Okay, if I had a taxidermied owl, first of all, it would not be under my bed. Second of all, I don't even know how would you acquire something like that? Where do you even get that? Because taxidermied is very specific. Like, it's not just a normal plush, you know? Like, how do you get a taxidermied owl out of all things? But, okay. When did you buy these tickets? I asked suddenly. Aiden doesn't answer. I only agreed to come with you a few hours ago, but you already had us on the next flight out of town. I booked tickets on every flight. Oh my god, how does he have this money? I booked tickets on every flight since New Year's Day. Excuse me? Aiden finally responds, as though that isn't a strange and extravagant way to make travel plans. I wanted to be ready to go as soon as you agreed. Who has that kind of money? What the heck? Oh, I don't ask what he would have done if I kept not agreeing to go with him for much longer. As we stand in line to board, I notice someone strange in the terminal. There's a man looking at me, even as he walks right past us to an adjacent gate where another flight is boarding. Not just looking, he's staring, almost like he knows me. But his face isn't friendly, like maybe he's trying to figure out why I look so familiar. He's wearing a long black coat and a wide-brimmed hat, like someone out of a movie set in the 1940s. But that's not the weirdest thing about him. There seems to be a sort of darkness attached to him, like a faint shadow is emanating from his body, surrounding him completely, unlike the rest of us, whose shadows are stuck to the floor beneath our feet. Did you see that man? I ask Aiden, but he's already walking down the ramp to board the plane. I turn back toward the mysterious man, but before I can make eye contact, he walks past the pillar and out of sight. We're sitting in first class. First class! Oh my god, I want this man's money. What the heck? Oh wow, indeed. Enormous pillows and soft blankets wait on our seats, and as soon as we sit down, a flight attendant is asking for a drink order. I ask for a Diet Coke, unlike Aiden, who says, "Nothing, thank you." Isn't that the whole point of sitting in first class? You can have whatever you want whenever you want it. I just like to be near the front of the plane, so I'm the first to get on and first to disembark. If you ask me, that's a total waste, but it doesn't look like Aiden's about to ask me. I settle into my window seat, shove my backpack beneath the seat in front of me, and watch the rest of the passengers board the plane. I can't help noticing that they all look a lot more festive than we do. They're headed down south for fun, to catch some rays and warmth, a respite from the winter chill. I'm pretty sure we're the only two people here who aren't about to go on a vacation. Surely we won't be working 24 hours a day, right? Maybe I'll have time to work on my tan and get some of that color that faded when we moved from Austin to Ridgemont. Mom would already be slathering sunscreen on her pale skin, even though we're still hours from landing south of the border. Where exactly are we going? I ask Aiden as the plane ascends. I've been working at a facility a couple hours north of Mazatlan for many years now. A facility? I echo. Aiden nods. It's called Lavar La Luz. When he sees the blank look on my face, I don't know much Spanish, he translates, "Bring the light." Why Mexico? Maybe he hates the rain and the cold as much as I do. Maybe I get that from him. Can preferences be hereditary? The warmth helps keep spirit under control, he answers softly. It's easier to keep dark spirits at bay. There are a few spirits who are drawn to warmth, fire demons, for example, but even they prefer the cold. They can hide more effectively in the cold. Why is that? My ears pop as the plane climbs higher and higher. Think about it. Is this what every conversation with Aiden is going to be like? Every time I have a question, he'll get all teachery and try to make me figure it out myself. I'm more interested in answers than in lessons, but I guess I don't have much of a choice. Finally, I respond. Because our temperatures drop when a spirit is near, so if we're already cold, it's harder to notice the difference? Exactly. Aiden nods. I guess that's what he meant when he said he was bringing me someplace safe. Because I'm not exactly an expert at exorcising demons yet, I'll be safer where there's few of them, and I can detect them more easily. Additionally, a warm environment is easier on the Louis siege than the cold, makes it easier for us to recover after a spirit touches us. I guess that means our preferences are kind of hereditary. So there are other Louis siege out there? Other mentees like me? The captain announces that he's turned off the fasten seatbelt sign. No, not like you. Before I can ask what he means by that, he adds, Lavar La Luz is where I've been conducting my research. What research? Aiden pauses before answering. Maybe he's worried the people on the plane around us might overhear and think he's nuts. Maybe they'll call Child Protective Services and send me back to Mom in Ridgemont before we've even begun. But then I remember what happened in the hospital parking lot and the look on Nolan's face when I didn't kiss him. I'm not entirely sure I want to go back. Not yet, anyway. The mission of Louis Seach is to maintain a balance between humans and spirits, between the light spirits and the dark. It has... I almost dropped my book. It has been our sacred duty for hundreds, thousands of years since the very dawn of humanity. He speaks as though he's reciting words he's said many times before. Is this your tried and true mentoring speech? I attempt a joke, but Aiden doesn't seem to get it. Or, at least, he doesn't crack a smile. I mean, every time you have a new Louis Seach to train, do you say the same thing? I try to laugh, but it's no use. Jokes aren't funny when you have to explain them. That is true. I'm not sure Aiden even knows what a joke is. We may have the same eyes, but that's where our physical similarities end. He's tall. So tall that his knees touch the seat in front of him, even in first class. I've got plenty of legroom, if only he could borrow some of mine. His hair is so dark it's almost black, and his skin is paler than mine, without a single freckle marring it. He's kind of perfect looking, like a statue or a Clark Kent or something. I bet he's never tripped. I bet he ties his shoelaces so tight they never come undone. That's such a weird, way to comment on someone's personality. Solemnly, he explains. As long as there have been humans living and dying on Earth, there have been Louis Seach guarding humanity and keeping the dark spirits from possessing them, forcing spirits to move on or destroying them altogether. Thanks to Nolan's research, I already know this. Grr. Grr. It literally says grr in the book. Just thinking about Nolan makes my stomach hurt, but it's impossible not to think of him because almost everything I understand about being a Louis Seach is thanks to him. But because no Louis Seach has been born since me, the balance has been disrupted, right? He nods. This is an unprecedented time in Louis Seach history. Score 1 for sunshine. I go through my mental list and land on another question. Your work. The work you and Victoria were doing. It was to restore the balance? Again, Aiden nods. In a way, yes. Part of my research is to find a solution to the growing darkness, the imbalance. Another question, another answer, even if he's not exactly chatty about it. Nolan said Louis Seach birth rates were dropping even before I was born. Do you know why? It takes 2 Louis Seach parents to make a Louis Seach child. I know, I respond, and Aiden looks surprised. Nolan, I explain with a shrug, raising my eyebrow even though saying his name out loud makes my stomach hurt even worse than thinking it. Our gene pool was shrinking. There are only so many Louis Seach, and the human race grows more numerous every year. I remember something Victoria said. She and Aiden had a falling out after she married a human and had a child. Was Aiden angry because she had given up the chance to have a Louis Seach baby instead of a human child? Anna, a child who could be killed by a demon? Maybe there were more Louis Seach like her, ones who couldn't help falling in love with a human. Louis Seach who cared more about having a family than about producing children with powers. The question I want to ask next, the question I've wanted to ask Aiden since he first showed up on my doorstep, sits like a stone in the back of my throat. Why did you abandon me? It's like the words are trapped in there, stuck between my vocal cords, unable to get out. So I asked something else instead. Why do I feel so warm about Nolan? Around Nolan. Hold on, I'm going to close my window. Okay. And we continue. Okay. He's your protector, Aiden explains. When he's near, the spirits that might touch you settle down a bit so your temperature doesn't dip so low. Before I can stop myself, I ask, but then why can't I touch him? I mean, I can touch him, but it makes me feel... I bite my lip. I specifically didn't want to ask Aiden this particular question. It's way too private, but it's also too late, because the words just flew out of my mouth before I could stop them. Aiden doesn't answer right away, and I'm surprised to see that he looks flustered. He's actually tugging at his collar, and for a second, I think he's going to loosen his tie. Maybe Aiden isn't so different from normal fathers, uncomfortable with the idea of his teenage daughter dating someone. Ashley told me her dad could barely look at her for days when he came home early from work one night and saw her making out with her boyfriend Corey Cooper in the driveway. Not that Aiden is my father the way Ashley's father is hers. He's my mentor father, and I've only known him a few days. He's not even human. Then again, neither am I. Finally, Aiden responds, Nolan is human and you're Luisich. Victoria was married to a human. It's complicated, he says, then looks away, distracted. It takes me a second, but soon I feel it too. A man who passed away seconds ago. Where did he come from? We're over Northern California right now. Even though we're airborne, for some spirits being set free from their bodies, we're the closest Luisich. They can't help being drawn to us. I feel it when the spirit disappears. Aiden helped him move on without blinking an eye, too quickly for me to focus and see him. He looks like he barely felt anything at all. Not the chill when the spirit arrived, nor the peace when he left. Aiden folds his arms and his over across his chest and closes his eyes. I am going to get some sleep before we land. I watch him for a moment, expecting him to shift in his seat, settle into his sleep, but he doesn't move. No one falls asleep that fast, right? But I know that it's even harder to rouse a fake sleeper than a real sleeper if the faker is determined to keep his eyes closed. From the way Aiden is squeezing his shut, I can tell he's more than a little determined. I turn away from my mentor father to stare out the window at the clouds floating beneath us, trying to ignore the nagging thought that's running a constant loop in my brain. If Aiden won't even give me a straight answer about Nolan, then what's he going to say when I finally start asking some of the bigger questions? Why did you abandon me? Who's my birth mother? Where is my birth mother? Why isn't she here with you? With me? I lean my forehead against the window and squeeze my eyes shut, pretending to sleep, determined not to open them until we get to Mexico. Another thing Aiden and I have in common. Okay, Chapter 8. Chapter 8. We land in Mazatlan, and follow, or actually lead, given our place in first class, the plane's other passengers to the customs line. This is my first time getting my passport stamped, and I can't help feeling a little bit excited when the official-looking stamp presses down on the otherwise blank paper. I steal a glance at Aiden's passport on the counter beside my own. It's so covered in stamps that the customs officer has trouble finding a blank space to mark it. He finally smacks the stamp down directly on top of another one that looks like it's in French. Aiden speaks to the official in perfect Spanish. At least I think it's perfect. I don't know enough Spanish to tell the difference. The airport is crowded and hot. I mean, it's air-conditioned, but no amount of artificial air can mask the heat that's beating down on this building from all sides. We have to go through security again before they'll let us outside. Our bags go through an X-ray conveyor belt just like they did at the airport in the States. I wonder whether they'll notice the knife tucked away in my backpack. Maybe it will manifest as something else when the X-ray passes over it, disguising itself as a t-shirt or a book so the security won't notice it. An enormous black SUV with tinted windows is waiting for us in the parking lot. But unlike the car we left behind in Washington, this one is caked with dried mud in the wheel wells and along the bottom of the doors. I climb inside, trying to keep the bottom of my pants from rubbing against the dirt. We drive north along the coast for more than 2 hours. At first, it looks like Mexico is the opposite of Richmond. Instead of gray, the world here is a collage of yellows and tans, sand and sun, and not much in between. There are no towering Douglas firs to provide relief from the heat, no damp chill in the air to make me shiver. But then the landscape shifts from going from arid desert to dense jungle. Definitely nowhere near those resorts you see in tourism commercials. And it's still damp, as in humid. As in, I think the frizz ball on top of my head might actually grow bigger here than it was in Washington. By the time Aiden stops the car, I have no idea where we are. Not that I've known where we've been from the moment we landed in Mazatlan, but now it feels like I know even less. About 30 minutes ago, we steered away from the ocean and began to climb the hillside. The farther we drove, the more uneven the ground beneath the car became until we were bouncing up and down so hard that I thought my head would smack against the roof, even with my seatbelt supposedly strapping me in. The road looked like little more than a path someone had carved out of the rainforest. Suddenly, Aiden makes a sharp left turn, and the trees all disappear as he pulls the car into a clearing at the center of a circle of huge buildings, every bit as tan as the dirt at our feet. The jungle around the buildings feels like it's closing in, like whoever was in charge of holding it back has long since left his post. "Welcome to Lavar Lalouse," Aiden says as he hefts my duffel bag from the trunk of the car. I'm gonna drink some water. So this place is kind of like a university? I look around. Each building is more ruined than the last. Glass is missing from half the windows, stucco crumbling down their walls. It looks like something out of a movie about being trapped in an ancient fortress in the middle of nowhere. A horror movie, the kind you're not supposed to watch before you go to sleep at night. Despite the heat, a chill in the air raises goosebumps on my arms and legs. Aiden was right about one thing. The drop in temperature is even more noticeable in the heat. Spirits are near. I look around like I think I'll be able to see them. All that time I spent in Washington, longing for my old life in Texas, and now here I am closer to Texas than I've been in months. Sure, a totally different part of Texas, but still Texas. And my life is even more different from what it was in Austin. Maybe it always will be. I hold my breath, waiting for another onslaught like the one I felt in the hospital parking lot, hoping Aiden will step in before I start having another spirit seizure. But the sensation doesn't get stronger than the slight chill in the air, and my heart doesn't start pounding like crazy. It's as if something is holding those spirits back. I glance at Aiden, trying to decipher whether he's doing something to keep the spirits from touching me, but if he is, it doesn't show. It was sort of like a university. It feels like I asked that question hours ago. My wife and I ran it. Your wife? The hairs on the back of my neck prickle, and the stone full of unanswered questions lodged in my throat loosens. You mean my mom, right? Just saying the words my mom and meaning anyone other than Kat feels wrong, creepier than the creepiest of spirits. From now on, I'm going to refer to her as my birth mother or Aiden's wife. Yes, Aiden replies shortly, like the answer is so obvious that the question wasn't really necessary. He drops his gaze and plays with his watch, and then adjusts the cuff of his shirt. Looks like his wife isn't his favorite topic of conversation. There are places like this across the globe, he continues, waving his arm at the ruined buildings around us. I wonder whether those other places across the globe are in better condition than this one. Most of them are just education centers, but this one became more of a lab over the years. It used to be populous with Louisiche and mentor pairs, with few protectors here to aid our work. The fact that everyone must have left doesn't need to be said out loud. The emptiness is clear in the dilapidated buildings, in the fact that Aiden's is the only car in sight, in the way that no one emerged to welcome us, in the sound of his voice echoing against the buildings across the courtyard. Why did they all leave? As my experiments stalled, more and more of the Louisiche who'd stood by my side left me. Okay. Including my birth mother? I kind of regret asking this because when Aiden nods yes, it looks like his head weighs 1,000,000 pounds. Wow. She broke his heart. He looks so sad that for a second I want to put my arms around him. Then I remember I've only known him a few days, and mentor father or not, he's still more or less a stranger. So I turn away, trying to look anywhere but him. It must have been beautiful here once. Directly in front of us is what must have been a glamorous mansion. An enormous wooden porch wraps around it, like the kind you see in movies about the antebellum South. But the pillars on either side of the front door are covered in vines so thick that the cement is crumbling beneath the weight of the leaves. There are so many holes in the wood of the front stairs that someone propped a giant plank across them like a ramp. Is this where Aiden and his wife lived? Is this where I was born? The jungle is dense. The jungle is dense behind the house, growing up around it like it's been biding its time before taking over completely. We're standing in what must have been a sort of courtyard, and across from the house in the other direction are 3 buildings, arranged in a half moon, rounding out the yard's almost perfect circle. Nolan would love this place. He's probably been thinking about going to college since before he started kindergarten. I'll call him later and tell him every detail. He'll start researching Louis Siege training facilities, trying to discover where on earth the rest of them are. Maybe they're in places as far-flung as Taiwan, Jerusalem, Buenos Aires, and Sydney. Maybe Nolan and I will start saving up someday so we can travel the world, seeing each and every one of them the way other teenagers backpack from one famous landmark to another. That is, if Nolan will even take my call tonight. I take a deep breath and close my eyes, but all I can see is the look on his face as I told him how it felt when he touched me. I open my eyes. Beyond the 3 buildings across the mansion, I can make out the shadows of even more structures between the trees. Maybe Louis Siege had to apply to come here, just like normal people have to apply to college. Maybe applicants had to write essays about why this was the Louis Siege training facility that best matched the kind of Louis Siege they wanted to be when they grew up. Aiden lifts my bag over his shoulder and heads toward the dark mansion in front of us. I follow, adjusting the straps on my backpack. The house's door is enormous, big enough for 4 people to walk through side by side, made of nearly black wood and covered in intricate carving. As we get closer, I can make out that almost all of the carvings are different depictions of the sun. Bring the light indeed. There isn't even a keyhole. Whoever put this door in place wasn't worried about normal things like locks and keys. Where did everyone else go when they left? Opening the door, Aiden solemnly answers. They joined the other side of the rift. His words echo through the empty house. Or maybe it just feels that way and they're actually echoing through my head. So many questions. What rift? What experiments was he running? Why was it a lab? What kind of research didn't go well so that they all decided to go and join a different side? I have many questions. I didn't think any house could be creepier than our house in Ridgemount back when Anna and the demon took up the residence there. But this place takes the cake. And I know takes the cake sounds like something someone about 3 times my age would say, but if the expression fits, wear it, right? Unlike most of the other buildings in Lavar-LaLuz I've seen so far, the house is mostly made of wood rather than stucco. I don't know what to call this place. A campus? A compound? A complex? The wood creaks as I step over the threshold, a haunting sort of hello. Directly across from the front door is an enormous staircase, so wide that a dozen people could walk up or down side by side. It's so damp in here that the wood used to build this house still smells alive. It's like stepping into a forest instead of out of one. Maybe there's something to that. I can't imagine just how many spirits have passed through these walls over the year, seeking out the nearest, strongest Louis Siege. Maybe all that activity has kept the wood in the walls vibrant, alive in a way. I rub my hands along the wall in search of a light switch, hit some peeling wallpaper, and get a paper cut on my fingertip. Ouch! I cry and suck on the cut. Careful, Aiden warns. This place isn't exactly in the best condition. So he has enough money to buy first class plane tickets every single day and like every single flight, but he doesn't have enough money to maintain a house. Excuse me, I think we have our priorities backward, but okay. Okay. That's an understatement. I finally find a light switch and flip it, but nothing happens. Keeping close to the wall, I look for another switch, heading deeper into the house. And flip it too. Nothing. Finally, I crash into what sounds like a ball of glass shards. I look down and see the remains of an enormous crystal chandelier. Where it must have once hung from the ceiling, there are now wires hanging down, like another set of vines to match the ones outside. This must have been the living room. Do mansions have living rooms? Maybe they called it something else. I rack my brain for the right words from all the old novels I love reading over and over again. The sitting room, the drawing room. Even in the darkness, I can see the furniture has been covered in white sheets, like someone dressed it up as ghosts for Halloween and then never undressed it. A setting perfectly fit for the ghost I see next. At first, I think it's a demon, covered in red and black peeling skin. I duck behind one of the sheet-covered couches. No. I duck behind one of the sheet-covered couches, but then I realize it's a woman, her skin badly burned. Way to be a good Louis Siege, sunshine. Her name was Marcy, and she was killed in an industrial accident only a few hours ago. She was working at a chemical plant, fell into a concentrated vat of paint remover, and passed away before they were able to pull her out. Even after her death, her skin continued to bubble and sizzle. That sounds painful. It's simultaneously terrifying and sad to see her badly burned and peeling skin. I want Aiden to notice her and help her, but he doesn't. Instead, I get colder as she gets nearer. I close my eyes, knowing she'll appear behind the couch beside me at any moment. I'm being a wimp. This woman may look terrifying, but she needs my help. I open my eyes, and there she is, standing before me, her former appearance almost entirely dissolved in harsh chemical burns. I can't make out her eyes as I reach out and touch her to help her move on. An amazing ball of light appears, and an overwhelming sense of peace washes over me, so much stronger than anything I've experienced before. I stand in silence for a moment as this woman's spirit dissolves into the air. I jump at the sound of Aiden dropping my duffel bag at the foot of the stairs. I turn around and make my way back toward the front door. I never go in there. Aiden nods in the direction of the room I just left. Yeah, I noticed, I think to myself. If Aiden saw the spirit, he's not letting on. Looks like no one ever does. Not that I could see much, I add quickly. Do any of the lights work? I'm starting to understand that this is how Louis Seach's lives are. One moment you're helping a spirit, and the next you're talking about what's for dinner, or in this case, what lights work. There's a generator out back, but it's not big enough to supply the whole house with power. That's not surprising. This house is enormous. Most of the rooms on the second floor have electricity. He nods at the stairs. I guess if you can only have power in part of the house, you'd want it to be upstairs. That's where the bedrooms usually are. Where you go when it's dark. Or apparently just where I'll be going when it's dark, as Aiden adds, the second floor is all yours. I have the whole house to myself? I have the whole floor to myself? That kind of sounds like a line out of one of those old books. The poor orphan girl taken to the mysterious mansion that she explores until she uncovers all its secrets. Like Mary in The Secret Garden, or Catherine in Northanger Abbey. Except I'm not an orphan. Right now, I'm actually less of an orphan than I have ever been. And I have ghosts. My room is here on the first floor, off of the kitchen. Aiden nods toward the darkness behind the stairs. Technically speaking, that's the servants' quarters, but I find it's the most efficient place to sleep. We haven't had servants here for nearly a century. It went out of fashion, you know. I certainly don't know anything about the fashion of having servants. Besides, I'm too distracted that Aiden just said nearly a century, like it wasn't all that long of a time. Just how old is he exactly? Victoria was 67 years old and looked at least half that age, and she'd been Aiden's student. There are another couple of bedrooms right beside my own, but I thought you'd want more privacy than that. He sounds almost shy, like the needs of a teenage girl are a total mystery to him. He doesn't offer to carry my bags upstairs. Maybe he wants me to know that the second floor is mine and mine alone. A totally private sanctuary. Maybe he got the generator for me too. For the second time today, I'm tempted to hug him, but I stop myself, rubbing sweaty palms together instead. The constant chill that permeated the space just outside the house, the presence of spirits, doesn't seem to reach inside the mansion. But I actually miss the chill. We've only been inside a few minutes, and I'm already sweating. Not that I want to be visited by another spirit to cool down. My clothes are sticking to my skin, and I yank at the collar of my t-shirt, feeling wrinkled and wrung out. The exhaustion from all the hours we spent traveling is finally kicking in. Aiden removes his suit jacket and folds it over one arm. His collar is still sharply folded around his neck, but even his perfect and straight dark hair looks a bit wilted. Maybe he's tired too. I'm sure you'd like to go upstairs and get settled. Get some rest after our travels. Gingerly, I step into the first stair. This definitely qualifies as a grand staircase. Like maybe once upon a time, Aiden and his wife gave grand parties here and used the stairs to make a magnificent entrance. Each step is covered in what at one time must have been colorful Mexican tile, but the paint has long since faded and half of them are cracked. Aiden? I say softly, but when I turn around, he's already gone. I can hear his footsteps as he walks away to someplace behind the stairs in the opposite direction of the room with the furniture covered in sheets. I grab my duffel bag, swing my backpack onto my shoulders, and start climbing. At the top of the stairs, I drop my bags with a dull thud. The house groans in response, as though I have heard it somehow. It's nearly pitch dark up here, and I run my hands along the wall until I hit a light switch. Thankfully, this one turns on. Though the tiny dirty bulbs screwed into the chandelier above my head don't exactly give off what you would call bright light. Now I can see there's a long hall in front of me, dotted with big doors directly across from one another, 3 on each side, with an enormous bay window at the end. There's so much space between each door, I can tell the rooms behind them must be huge. I take the knife out of my bag and slip it in my back pocket. When I open the door closest to me, on the right, I'm hit by a hot, stale breeze, like the house is letting out a breath it had been holding in as long as the door was shut. I cough as dust collides with my face, and I run my fingers along the wall until I find another light switch. Some weak yellow light blinks down from the candle-shaped fixture screwed into the walls, and I notice a few cockroaches scrambling for cover. Yuck. At least they're not spiders, though. I prefer spiders over cockroaches, I'm not gonna lie. There are 2 enormous chairs framing a fireplace. Who was the architect who thought a fireplace was necessary here? Wood-paneled walls are lined with packed bookshelves. Lilac-colored velvet drapes cover the large windows, and the floor is covered in a matted cream-colored carpet. It looks more like a room you'd find in an English country manor than a house in the middle of a jungle. It would be the perfect Jane Austen fantasy if it weren't for the bugs crawling about, vines growing over the windows, and the humidity so powerful that the peeling lavender wallpaper looks like it's sweating. When I close the door, the house inhales again. I spin around, like I expect to find a giant standing behind me, taking enormous labored breaths, but there's no one there. I open the next right-hand door, and inside is a bedroom. A big wooden bed covered in a peach blanket sits smack in the center of the room. I step inside and bounce onto the bed, giving it a try, feeling a little bit like Goldilocks testing out the three bears' beds. It's so covered in dust it makes me sneeze. Back to the hallway and onto the next door. Another exhalation, another bedroom, and another bed so covered in dusty blankets, bright blue and silky this time, that I sneeze when I sit on it. But the lamp on this nightstand works, and there's no visible bugs. Score 1 for the second bedroom. I cross to the other side of the hall, opening the door closest to the bay window. The light switch in this room not only works, it reveals an elaborate crystal chandelier hanging down from the center of the ceiling that actually floods the room with bright white light. The four-poster bed in the center of the room is so big that could easily accommodate a family of 5. My breaths come quickly as I realize that this must have been my birth parents' room. I run my fingers along the back of the silky green chair at the foot of the bed. There is a fancy desk with a mirror behind it on the wall across from the door. No, not a desk. A vanity, where women sit and put on their makeup. Where Aiden's wife sat to put on her makeup. The wooden surface of the vanity is so smooth that it shines even beneath a layer of dust. There is a heavy brush that she must have left behind. I bend down and see a few strands of brown hair still tangled in its thick bristles. I open the top drawer, and the strong scent of perfume fills the moist air. I sniff, trying to identify it. Lavender, I think, with something else mixed in. Something spicy to keep it from smelling too delicate. The drawer creaks when I push it closed, the scent fading until it's all but vanished. Slowly and carefully, I back out into the hallway, eager to leave this room exactly how I find it. Exactly how Aiden must have left it. The next room, I'm relieved to discover, is a bathroom, with complete working lights and running hot and cold water. The carpet behind the last door, first on the left at the top of the stairs, is so plush I have to push extra hard to get the door open. The curtains in this room are firmly shut, so the room is even darker than the rest of the house. I finger the wall just beside the door until I find the light switch, but the light won't turn on. I reach into my pocket. My fingers brush against the knife as I pull my phone out to use as a flashlight. For a split second, I wonder which of the items in my pocket would be most useful. Don't be ridiculous, Sunshine. You'd feel it if there were spirits close by. Your heart rate would accelerate. Your temperature would plummet. Wait. It's cool in here. Not like spirit touching me ice cold, but a pleasant cool breeze circles the room like this one part of the house has AC. I choose my phone and flash a tiny beam of light around the room. It takes my eyes a few seconds to adjust. And then I gasp. It's a nursery. Everything in here is white. I mean, it's grayish now thanks to the dust, but it was all white once. So bright that it must have been cheerful. There's a crib in one corner and a dresser across from it. I open the dresser drawers, and inside are tiny little clothes, so small that they look like they were made for a doll instead of a person. There's a white stuffed animal on the changing table, an owl that looks almost exactly like Doctor Who, identical to the toy I saw at Victoria's house, the one she said was Anna's favorite. The stuffed bird's lifeless plastic eyes stare at me, practically glowing in the light. I take a step back, like I think this bird might take flight just like Doctor Who did one terrifying night. But the owl stays lifelessly still, and after a few moments, I point the flashlight in another direction. Every detail in this room was attended to. There are soft patches over the furniture's corners to keep a toddling baby from getting hurt. There are scented sachets in the drawers beneath the changing table to keep the air smelling fresh. There are tiny pink rosebuds on the otherwise white sheets on the crib, as though whoever decorated the room knew the baby was going to be a girl, which I was. The breeze lifts my long hair off my shoulders. I point the light up, looking for AC vents, for a ceiling fan, for any logical explanation, but there is nothing. No thermostat on the wall, no intricately carved vents by the ceiling. Even the windows aren't open, and when I try to open them, I discover the vines have pretty much sealed them shut. This room has a breeze all its own, like whoever filled it with all this furniture wanted it to be as comfortable as possible. I back out of the room. When I turn around, the dorm slams shut behind me all on its own with a bang so loud that I jump in surprise. I regain my footing and stand in the hallway, panting as though I'd been running, staring at the door that just slammed shut behind me. I feel the need to put more distance between myself and the nursery. I drag my bags into the second bedroom, across and down the hall. I manage to open one of the windows with just a crack. I lean against the window frame and breathe in the air outside. Not that it offers any respite from the heat, not like the air in the nursery. I shake my head. Someone made up that room carefully, attentively, lovingly. Someone? Aiden? His wife? Both of them together? Was excited to have me, wanted everything to be absolutely perfect for the little girl to be born. How did they go from preparing the perfect room to abandoning me at a Texas hospital? Aiden must have known I'd see the nursery when he sent me up here. Was he trying to tell me something? Did he want me to know there was a time he had every intention of raising me, caring for me, loving me? I shake my head and back away from the window. The bedroom I've chosen is decorated in bright colors. Instead of a plush carpet at my feet, there is the same blue, yellow, and white tile from the hall, although the colors have faded with age just like they are everywhere else. It's nothing like my room in Ridgemont, with its thick carpet and floral wallpaper. The pink so bright that it seems like decades wouldn't be enough to make the color fade. I grab my phone and dial Nolan's number, anxious to tell him every last detail of this place, but I freeze before I hit send. The expression on his face when I told him what I told him before I left Ridgemont blossoms in my mind's eye. Maybe if I just apologized. No. I bite my lip. Any apology I could offer would be hollow, pointless, empty. I can't take back what I said because it was the truth. I glance at my phone. Looks like there isn't any service in here anyhow. I fall back on the bed, grabbing one of the pillows to press into my face, smothering a miserable groan. The pillow is so covered in dust that it makes me sneeze. I roll over, and the knife beneath me slides from one side of my pocket to the other. Like it wants to remind me that's in there. I can't help but wonder, when will I need it next? Oh, we have the thing with italics again. It's not a chapter necessarily, but it says a dead end. That woman brought me to a rain-saturated town in the northwestern corner of the United States. She claimed this is where the girl lived. She told me her name, Sunshine Griffith, and I struggled to hide my smile. The girl's light was so bright that even the human who named her could sense it. But we were too late. Aiden had already come and gone, taking the girl with him. Of course, I knew exactly where he was headed when he left, but I can't go there. Not anymore. None of my people can get there. When we left, we also gave up the ability to step over its borders, wide as they stretch. Even that woman says she can't go there now. Which means I have no more use for her. Although her birthright as a Louis Stitch protected her from being permanently killed at the hands of a demon, she no longer has the power to see spirits and help them move on. Perhaps she'll try to live out her days as a human, though even she must sense the darkness gathering in the corners of the world. Sometimes I envy human in their ignorance. They'll never have to do what I have to. Even Aiden wasn't selfless enough to go through with it. But the woman begs me not to leave her behind. She pleads for a place at my side. I tell her I have no reason to keep her. After all, the only information that she offered me was a dead end. I say perhaps she knew it would be. I suggest she may have been working with Aiden all along. I'll make my way south and wait as close to the campus as possible. They can't stay hidden forever. But before I leave that woman behind, she tells me that although the girl may be gone, her protector is still close by, and she offers to take me to him. Who is that woman? Is it the mom? Is it Victoria? Something else? So I choose to keep that woman close, and I chose to stay. For now. Who's the woman? Okay. I'm probably going to read one more, maybe a couple more chapters and then call it a day. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. Someplace safe? I'm still not asleep when I hear a voice. Not again, I whisper to myself. The last time I heard a strange voice on my first night in a new place, it was the beginning of the test that turned my entire life upside down. I get out of bed. My step results in creaks and groans as though my small person footfalls are shaking the house to its foundation. I tiptoe across the room and open the door a tiniest crack. I breathe a sigh of relief because the voice is one I recognize. It's not a spirit or a demon. It's just the sound of Aiden's deep baritone. What has my life been reduced to that hearing my supernaturally empowered, long-lost birth father's voice has become the most normal explanation available to me? But then another voice enters the conversation. Duh, sunshine. Obviously Aiden was talking to someone. A voice I don't recognize, though it's almost as deep as Aiden's, so I can tell it belongs to a male. At first, the words sound like nothing but gibberish. The last time I heard a strange voice speaking words I couldn't understand, it was coming from my mother's mouth when the demon possessed her. What kind of creature is downstairs with Aiden now? As the voices grow louder, I realize the second voice isn't speaking some mystical dead language, but rather Spanish. I'm able to pick up a very few random words I'd heard before. Dos, mañana, nunca. Nice one, sunshine. You're mistaking Spanish for mystical dead languages. Such a worldly girl you are. I sigh at just how much my life has changed since turning 16. I guess someone else is sleeping in one of the bedrooms downstairs. Someone who didn't abandon Aiden when the others left. Someone he hasn't told me about yet. And apparently, this someone is very upset about something because his voice is growing louder with each syllable. Keep your voice down, Aiden growls in English. The girl is asleep upstairs. I'm not asleep. Be as loud as you like. I'm sorry, the other voice answers, but it's hard to keep quiet when one of our spirits escaped days ago and I still can't find it. One of our spirits? You'll find it. And if I don't in time, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Unlike whoever he's talking to, Aiden doesn't raise his voice, which makes me want to run downstairs and shout. How can you be calm at a time like this? Because I know what happens to spirits who don't move on in time. They turn dark, like the demon who nearly killed my mother. A spirit shouldn't be behaving like this, the other voice argues. Aiden and his companion lapse back into Spanish. More words I don't understand until finally I hear one of them say, Buenas noches, which even I know means good night. I listen to their footsteps creak across the hardwood and the first floor as they move across the room. 2 doors click softly shut. Aiden and his friend, whoever he is, have gone to bed. I close my door. It's so humid and hot in this room that I've long since flung the covers back. This old mattress isn't nearly as soft as my mattress back in Ridgemont. Oh my god, sorry. Okay. Anyways, going on. I lost my spot. Oh, the old mattress isn't nearly as soft as my mattress back in Richmond. I swear I could literally feel each individual spring digging into my back. The idea of lying back down isn't exactly appealing. But I know I should at least try to get some sleep. I don't know what Aiden has planned for me tomorrow, but I don't think he's the kind of teacher who'll excuse you from class just for being tired, especially on the first day. But first I drop to the ground and feel around the dark until my hands hit the jeans I'd been wearing earlier. I dig the knife out of my back pocket and slide it beneath my pillow. Suddenly, this supposed someplace safe doesn't feel so safe after all. The sheets twist around my sweaty legs, and the lingering dust now wet and sticking to my skin. I squeeze my eyes shut. Pretending to sleep is almost as good as the real thing, right? Much to my surprise, within a few minutes my eyelids grow heavy and my breaths grow deeper. Within seconds, I'm asleep. I'm dreaming. The nightmare starts out innocently enough. There's a beautiful woman standing before me, curly brown hair framing her lovely face, her tanned skin the color of honey. She smiles at me, and I smile back automatically. She coos in response, reaching her arms out to hold me. But then something in her face shifts. There's something desperate in her eyes. She looks like the evil queen from a fairy tale, beautiful but dangerous. Her hands turn into fists, her eyes narrows, and it looks like she's biting her tongue to keep from screaming out loud. I understand that whoever she is, this woman wants to hurt me. I open my mouth to scream, but the only sound that escape are pitiful cries. I try to stand and run, but my muscles are too weak. My limbs won't cooperate with the messages my brain is trying to send them. I look down, trying to figure out what's wrong with my legs. Am I tied up? Are they broken and beaten? What I see is even more horrifying. They aren't my legs at all. Or anyway, they're not the legs I have now. The legs that trudged up the stairs of this strange and sad house a few hours ago. Instead, they're the helpless kicking legs of an infant who should be sleeping in a crib like the one across the hall instead of in this enormous old bed. I'm trapped in this small, vulnerable body. I wave my helpless baby arms around my head and try to speak, but my muscles and my brain aren't developed enough to make words. I'm not strong enough to do anything but cry and moan and kick pathetically against a blanket the woman wraps tightly around me, covering my face as I try to breathe. When I finally wake up, my real-life teenage arms and legs are sore. So much for getting plenty of rest before the first day of training. Hold on. Okay, the next chapter is kind of short, so I'll read one more and then I'm going to call it there. Chapter 11. Lucio. The boy extends his hand in my direction. Lucio, he says. I find myself staring at the tattoos running down the sides of his right pointer finger, bright white against his caramel skin. From here, they look like words written in a flowy, loopy script, but I can't quite make out what they say. When I came downstairs in search of coffee, the last thing I expected to be confronted with was a strikingly handsome boy, a wide smile on his face, perched on top of the kitchen counter with his legs swinging back and forth over the edge. I wasn't even expecting to be able to find the kitchen, but I did, after walking around in circles a few times. Huh? I answered dumbly. I may have slept some last night, but I don't exactly feel rejuvenated this morning. Lucio, he repeats, hopping down from the counter, his tattooed hand still floating in the space between us. Still bleary-eyed, I realize his must have been the voice I heard speaking with Aiden in the middle of the night. The voice was so deep that it never occurred to me that he'd be so young. He looks only a few years older than I am. Though if he's a Luisich, who knows, right? He could be 80 for all I know. His skin is the exact color of the milky cup of coffee I'd been hoping to find down here. He's wearing a t-shirt and shorts, though his t-shirt is red, while mine is bright blue with a flock of birds flying across it. But unlike me, his hair is wet from a recent shower and his breath smells like toothpaste. I cover my mouth to keep my morning breath from escaping. I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. No, silly, he laughs, then explains in the same perfect, barely accented English I heard him speak last night. That's my name, Lucio. Oh, I blush and reach out to shake his hand. He's only a few inches taller than I am, nothing like Aiden, who towers above me. I'm Sunshine. I know. Do you also know where a girl can get a cup of coffee around here? There might not be electricity on the first floor, but there is an enormous gas stove in the corner with a kettle of water steaming on top. Lucio hands me a mug and pours in some hot water. No coffee. Have some tea, he says, like it's the same thing. He plops the tea bag into the mug and returns the kettle to the stove. Not quite what I was looking for, I answer, but I take a sip, suddenly very aware of the fact that I'm still dressed in the super short shorts I slept in and that my hair is pulled into the messiest, frizziest bun in the history of hairstyles. I try to inconspicuously pull down on the legs of my shorts, making them a fraction of an inch longer, which I realize is pointless. There's milk in the icebox, Lucio offers, gesturing to a cooler set in front of the enormous but powerless stainless steel refrigerator. I think it's still good. You think? He shrugs, hopping back up onto the counter. He's wearing shorts, and I can't help but notice his muscular legs. I look away, feeling shy. Okay, sunshine. I blink and squeeze my mug, even though the water inside is so hot that it nearly burns me. The kitchen is enormous, covered in the same ceramic tile as the room I slept in last night. It's not nearly as dark as the rest of the house. The window at the end of the room isn't covered in curtains, so some light actually gets in from the vines growing over it. Lucio sits on the marble counter in the center of the room, right next to a sink with a dripping faucet. A long, scratched wooden table sits beneath the window beyond the counter. This must have been where the servants sat, back when having servants was in fashion. I peer through a doorway at the end of the room and see a richly carpeted dining room, complete with a gleaming mahogany table surrounded by at least a dozen chairs. But I quickly turn away and sit on one of the wobbly wooden chairs in the kitchen instead, blowing on my tea to cool it. Good morning, Aiden says formally as he walks into the room. I stand up quickly, like I think I'm supposed to come to attention in his presence, like he's my drill sergeant and I'm his new recruit. In embarrassingly short shorts, for the first time since I met him, which isn't long, I know. He's not wearing a suit. Instead, his khaki pants are perfectly pressed, and his white button-down is buttoned nearly to the top, and its sleeves are rolled up neatly above his elbows. I guess that's his idea of casual wear. I see you've met Lucio. He works with me. One of the few who didn't leave our side. Aiden confirms that Lucio is a Louis Siege like me. Well, not exactly like me. Lucio's probably known he was a Louis Siege for a whole lot longer than a few months. He'll help us out a bit this morning, but he was up late last night. So was I. So were you. He'll be going back to bed to get some rest soon. The last part of the sentence is addressed to the other Louis Siege, not me. Like as part of a conversation they've had before. Like Aiden is worried Lucio isn't getting enough rest. Lucio jumps back down from the counter and grabs a cup of tea. He adds milk and honey and hands it to Aiden like he's done a million times before. He clearly knows exactly what Aiden wants. What's he helping us out with exactly? I don't add that I heard them arguing last night, that I already have an idea of what kind of work keeps Lucio up late. We have to start your training. Victoria's note said I'd be resuming the work that you and she had been working on together. Victoria's note is the only explanation I have for what I'm doing here. I read it so many times that I practically memorized it before I left it with Nolan. Aiden shakes his head. We have a lot of ground to cover first. But then I wrinkle my nose just like Mom would if she were here, and boy do I wish she were. What am I doing here if I'm not helping with your work? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Aiden turns from me to Lucio. I'm just going to check in at the lab before we get started. Can you take her to the playground? Lucio nods. I get the idea that Aiden isn't talking about an actual playground. Wherever he's asking Lucio to take me probably won't include swings and slides and seesaws. Aiden turns back to me. Get dressed. I'll meet you there soon. He turns on his heel. I get up and follow him. Meet me where? I don't know if it's the bad dreams or the conversation I overheard last night or the fact that Aiden is leaving me with this boy I don't even know, but I suddenly feel completely helpless. Even if I wanted to leave, I couldn't. We're in the middle of a jungle. My cell phone doesn't work in this house. If Aiden left me alone, I'd be completely trapped. I follow him out of the kitchen and around the stairs. Promise you won't abandon me in the middle of Mexico, I joke, but not really. The house takes a deep breath as Aiden opens the enormous front door. Before I can stop myself, the next 8 words come flying out of my mouth. She speaks without control a lot, doesn't she? Just like you abandoned me 16 years ago. If I were in a cartoon, I'd slap my hand over my mouth like I had no idea where that sentence came from. Aiden closes the door gently and turns around, furrowing his brow like I've just spoken Greek or something. Then again, maybe Aiden speaks Greek. He probably speaks everything. I never abandoned you. I thought you understood that now. Go have some breakfast. We have a lot of work to do today. The door slams shut behind him. We've gone from hardly knowing each other to father-teen-daughter cliche pretty quickly. Come on, Lucio says. Get dressed. It's hard work, but Aiden's a good teacher. How do you know? He's my mentor too. He is? Lucio laughs. You see anyone else around here? He raises his arm, indicating the otherwise empty house, empty buildings, empty campus. Aiden had no choice but to mentor Lucio. There was no one else left to teach him. I head for the stairs. You're the only other Louis Seach here, right? Leaning against the curved metal banister at the foot of the stairs, Lucio nods. I grew up here. My parents were on Aiden's side until the day they died. With his left hand, he toys with the tattoo in his right hand, like he's spinning an invisible ring on his finger. I'm sorry, I say quickly. My birth father could may be cold and scientific, but my birth mother might be a complete mystery, but at least I've always had Kat. When I came close to losing her, it made me sadder and more scared than I'd ever been in my whole life. I can't imagine how Lucio must feel. It was 9 years ago. I was 8. He shrugs, but his shoulders look heavy. I do the math in my head. Lucio is 17 years old, which means he's been an active Louis Seach for at least a year. How did it happen? Lucio doesn't answer right away. I open my mouth to apologize for asking. That's none of your business, sunshine. But before I can speak, he says, a demon took them. I gasp. That means that their spirits were destroyed, that Lucio is destined to forget them. I'm sorry, I repeat softly. Thanks. Lucio runs his fingers over his scalp. His black hair is cropped and very short. No chance of it falling across his eyes like Nolan's does. Now get dressed. We should get to work. Right. I take a few steps up the stairs and then freeze in my tracks. If Lucio is a Louis Seach, that means his parents were Louis Seach too. I turn around. I thought Louis Seach couldn't be killed by dark spirits. Lucio bites his thick, Ashley would call it luscious, but just the thought makes me blush, lower lip. He squeezes his hands into fists at his sides, and I can see the muscles working up and down his arms. I didn't know you knew that. Why did you lie to me? I'm annoyed this boy I hardly know thinks it's okay to lie to me. I didn't mean to lie. It's easier to believe they were killed by a dark spirit. Easier than what? He takes a deep breath. Easier than the fact that they were killed for what they believed in. The Louis Seach on the other side of the rift were interrogating my parents in search of... He pauses. Of some precious information. When my parents didn't crack under pressure, they were killed for keeping their secret. I cover my mouth with my hand. I'm sorry, I say once more. I've known this guy for less than an hour, and I can't seem to stop apologizing to him. It's okay, Lucio says solemnly. After my parents died, Aiden took me in. Over the years, when the others left, I stayed. From the tone of his voice, it's obvious this boy really looks up to Aiden. Go on, he mercifully changes the subject. Get dressed. Believe me, you want to get out there before it gets too hot, even if you're planning on wearing those short shorts. Instantly, my face turns red and I turn away. Is he flirting with me? It's not a practice I have much experience with. I decide not to overanalyze it and skip up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, even though my legs are still tired from kicking and squirming all night long. I shudder as I remember the nightmare. I still have a lot to learn about the rift between the Louis Seach, but whoever's on the other side must be truly evil if they killed the nice boy's parents. And that brings us to the end of chapter 11. So next time I will start with chapter 12, and hopefully I'll do it sooner than I did between these two. We're actually almost halfway through the book, and then there's book 2. Guys, it is not funny. I have a whole pile of books I want to read. So I'm not gonna read them all on stream. I'm definitely gonna read a few on my own, but I'm staring at the pile on my desk and it's my goal for this week. So we'll see if I actually get through that. But yay. Thank you for coming today. That's gonna be it for now. And I will have my schedule up later today. Otsu everyone, and see you next time. Bye bye.